A single moment of anger at Silverstone Circuit changed Marcus Brennan's life forever. When the mechanic from Stevenage taught his 10-year-old son Theo to boo 7-time Formula One champion Lewis Hamilton, he never expected to be caught on video, or for that video to go viral overnight. Facing public backlash and his son's growing shame, Marcus writes a heartfelt letter to Hamilton seeking forgiveness. What happens next shocks everyone, especially Marcus himself. Hamilton's unexpected response doesn't just forgive, it transforms both father and son in ways they never imagined, revealing a champion whose greatest victory might be off the track. The rain fell in sheets over Silverstone Circuit, but nothing could dampen the mood of the 150,000 fans who packed the grandstands. Marcus Brennan pulled his red Ferrari cap lower over his eyes and wrapped an arm around his son's shoulders. "You warm enough, Theo?" Marcus asked, looking down at his 10-year-old boy. Theo nodded, his eyes never leaving the track where 20 Formula One cars sliced through the rain, sending rooster tails of water into the air. The boy clutched a small Ferrari flag in one hand and a hot chocolate in the other. "Dad, do you think Leclerc can catch Hamilton?" Theo asked, raising his voice. "Over the screaming engines." Marcus frowned at the mention of Lewis Hamilton. The British driver in the silver Mercedes was currently leading the race, having pulled away from the pack after a perfect pit stop. "Not if Hamilton keeps driving like that," Marcus admitted grudgingly. "But there's still 20 laps to go. Anything can happen in these conditions." All around them, fans cheered as the cars completed another lap. Most waved Union Jack flags for the British drivers, but Marcus stood firm in his Ferrari red. He had followed the Italian team since he was 8 years old, when his father first brought him to this very track. Back then, it was Michael Schumacher in the red car, dominating the sport. Now, 30 years later, Marcus carried on the family tradition with his own son. The crowd suddenly roared as Hamilton made a brilliant move, overtaking a back marker while maintaining his lead. The cheers echoed around the circuit. Something snapped inside Marcus. He cupped his hands around his mouth and booed as loudly as he could. "Oh!" The sound tore from his throat, shocking even himself. A few fans turned to stare. Some looked uncomfortable. Others, mostly wearing Ferrari or Red Bull merchandise, joined in. The booing spread through their section of the grandstand like a wave. Theo looked up at his father with wide eyes. Then, hesitantly, the boy put down his hot chocolate and joined in, cupping his small hands around his mouth. "Boo!" Theo's voice was softer, uncertain. Marcus didn't notice the woman 3 rows back, holding up her phone and filming the whole thing. By the time they left the circuit, the race long finished with Hamilton claiming victory, Marcus had forgotten about the booing incident. It was just part of sports, he told himself. Fans expressed themselves all the time. No harm done. He and Theo had a quiet drive home to Stevenage, the same town where Lewis Hamilton had grown up. Theo fell asleep in Oidtoind, the back seat, still clutching his Ferrari flag. Marcus smiled at his son in the rear-view mirror, feeling the familiar warmth of sharing his passion with the next generation. They arrived home just after 6. Lisa, Marcus's wife, greeted them at the door. "So, how was it?" she asked, helping. A sleepy Theo off with his rain jacket. "Hamilton won," Marcus said flatly. "Dad booed him really loud," Theo added, his voice carrying no judgment, just stating a fact. Lisa raised an eyebrow but said nothing as Theo ran upstairs to put his race program in his collection. "Really, Marcus? Booing? What kind of example is that?" she asked when Theo was out of earshot. Marcus shrugged. "It's just part of being a fan. Everyone does it." You're teaching your son that it's okay to disrespect people who work hard and achieve things, Lisa said, disappointment clear in her voice. Is that what your dad taught you? The question hit Marcus harder than he expected. His father had been passionate, but always respectful. He had taught Marcus to appreciate skill regardless of the team colors. It's different now, Marcus muttered. Hamilton's not like the drivers from back then. He's all show. Designer clothes, celebrity friends, private jets while preaching about the environment. Lisa shook her head and walked into the kitchen. Marcus followed, wanting to explain himself better. But his phone buzzed with a notification. It was a message from Dale, his friend from work. Mate, is this you? Attached was a video link. Marcus tapped it, and his stomach dropped. There he was, in the grandstand, face contorted as he booed. The camera then panned to show Theo copying him. The boy's innocent face twisted into an unfamiliar expression of contempt. The caption read, "Teaching the next generation to hate. Great parenting at British GP today." The video already had thousands of views and hundreds of comments. Marcus scrolled through them with growing horror. What a role model. Father of the year right there. Poor kid is learning to hate instead of appreciate greatness. This is what's wrong with sports today. Someone should tag Lewis in this. Let him see what he deals with. Marcus's hands felt cold. He hadn't thought of himself as teaching hate. It was just booing, just letting off steam. Wasn't it? Marcus? What is it? Lisa asked, noticing his expression. Wordlessly, he handed her the phone. She watched the video, her face falling. "Oh, Marcus," she whispered. "That's not who we are. That's not what we teach Theo." Before he could respond, Theo called down from upstairs. "Dad, come quick." They rushed upstairs to find Theo staring at his tablet, tears welling in his eyes. One of his school friends had sent him the same video. "Everyone's gonna see this," Theo said, his voice trembling. "They're saying mean things about you, Dad. And," his voice dropped to a whisper, "does Lewis Hamilton hate me now?" Marcus felt as if the floor had dropped from beneath him. In his son's eyes, he saw something he'd never wanted to put there. Shame. "No, buddy," Marcus said, sitting beside Theo and pulling him close. "Lewis Hamilton doesn't hate you. He doesn't even know you." But the words sounded hollow even to his own ears. The British champion might well see the video. It was gaining views by the minute. And what would he think of a grown man teaching a child to boo him in his home race? "It's going to blow over," Marcus said, trying to convince himself as much as Theo. "People will forget about it in a day or two." But later that night, after Theo had finally fallen asleep, Marcus's phone buzzed again. The Sky Sports F1 Twitter account had shared the video. The commentators were discussing it on their post-race show, talking about respect in sports and the example adults set for children. Marcus switched off the TV and sat in the dark living room, head in his hands. In a single moment of thoughtless anger, he had become the face of everything wrong with sports fandom. Worse, he had dragged his son into it. As rain continued to tap against the windows, Marcus faced an uncomfortable truth. The person he'd been at the track today wasn't the man he wanted to be, and it definitely wasn't the father he wanted to be for Theo. Something would have to change. He just didn't know what or how. His phone buzzed once more. This time, it was a message from his mother. "Marcus James Brennan, we need to talk about this video I've just seen. This isn't how your father and I raised you." Marcus closed his eyes. The moment that had seemed so small at the track, just a boo, just letting off steam, had turned into something that was changing his life. And he had no idea how to fix it. Marcus barely slept that night. By morning, the video had over 1 million views. His phone kept buzzing with messages from people he hadn't spoken to in years, some supportive but most expressing disappointment. At breakfast, Theo pushed his cereal around the bowl, unusually quiet. "Do I have to go to school today?" he finally asked. Lisa and Marcus exchanged looks across the table. "Why wouldn't you want to go to school, buddy?" Marcus asked, though he already knew the answer. "Everyone's going to talk about the video," Theo mumbled. Marcus felt the guilt twist in his stomach like a knife. "I'll drive you today," he offered, "and I'll talk to your teacher. Explain what happened." The drive to school was silent. In the Adi Uder parking lot, Marcus knelt down to Theo's level. "Listen, Theo, what happened yesterday, the booing, that was wrong. I was wrong. You understand that, right?" Theo nodded, his eyes fixed on his shoes. "And if anyone gives you a hard time today, you tell them that your dad made a mistake and he's sorry." "Okay," Theo whispered, then hurried into the school building without looking back. Marcus sat in his car for a long moment, remembering when he was Theo's age. Back then, Stevenage had seemed like the center of the universe. His dad would take him to watch local go-kart races on weekends. Sometimes they'd spot a young Lewis Hamilton tearing around the track, already showing the talent that would take him to Formula One. "That kid's going places," his dad had said once, pointing at Hamilton. "Remember his name?" Marcus had remembered, all right. In the beginning, he'd cheered for Hamilton, proud that someone from his hometown was making it big. He'd defended Hamilton against classmates who said racing was only for rich kids. His dad worked 3 jobs to support his racing, Marcus would tell them. "He's one of us." So when had that changed? When had admiration turned to resentment? As Marcus drove to work at Griner's garage, he tried to pinpoint the moment. Maybe it was in 2018, at the Sports Personality of the Year Awards, when Hamilton had called Stevenage the slums on live television. The comment had stung everyone in town. Hamilton had apologized later, saying he meant it as a contrast to where he'd ended up, not as an insult. But the damage was done. Or maybe it was simpler than that. Maybe it was just hard to watch someone else live the dream that Marcus had once had for himself. At 14, Marcus had been a promising young racer too. Not as good as Hamilton, but good enough that people took notice. Then came his father's heart attack. The medical bills piled up. Racing became an unaffordable luxury. By 16, Marcus was working part-time at the same garage where he now worked as head mechanic. He parked in his usual spot at Griner's and sighed. 20 years of fixing other people's cars. 20 years of watching Formula One on TV instead of racing in it. And last month, he'd been passed over for the manager position he'd been promised, given instead to the owner's nephew. "Morning, hotshot," called Dale as Marcus walked into the garage. "Our local celebrity arrives." The other mechanics looked up from their work. Some smirked. Others quickly looked away, embarrassed for him. "Knock it off, Dale," Marcus muttered, heading for the office to clock in. Mr. Griner was waiting for him there, arms crossed. "Want to explain this?" he asked, turning his computer monitor to show the viral video playing on a news site. "It's not what it looks like," Marcus began, then stopped himself. "No, that's not true. It's exactly what it looks like. I lost my temper and set a bad example for my son. I'm sorry if it's reflected poorly on the garage." Mr. Griner studied him for a long moment. "We've had 3 customers call this morning asking if you still work here. One said he won't bring his car in as long as that man is touching it." Marcus felt the blood drain from his face. "Mr. Griner, I need this job. My family—" "I'm not firing you, Marcus. Not over one stupid mistake. But you need to fix this, and fast." He turned the monitor back around. "People know you work here. That means this affects all of us." By lunchtime, Marcus couldn't focus on the BMW engine he was supposed to be rebuilding. His phone had finally stopped buzzing. He'd turned off notifications after his mother's call that morning. "I raised you better than this," she'd said, disappointment heavy in her voice. He'd tried to explain about the heat of the moment, about how booing was just part of sports, but even to his own ears, the excuses sounded hollow. The garage radio was tuned to a sports talk show. As Marcus reached for his sandwich, he froze at the sound of his own name. This Marcus Brennan from Stevenage, teaching his kid to boo a 7-time world champion. What kind of message does that send? Marcus slammed the radio off, earning curious looks from his co-workers. "Can we not make this a bigger deal than it already is?" he snapped. Dale raised his hands in mock surrender. "Just saying, mate, if you wanted attention, there are better ways to get it." The rest of the workday crawled by. When 5 o'clock finally came, Marcus found himself dreading going home. He stopped by the Red Lion pub instead, a place he hadn't visited in months. "Well, look who it is," said Barry, the bartender, as Marcus slid onto a stool. "Our town's newest celebrity." "Not you too," Marcus groaned. Barry placed a pint in front of him. "On the house. Sounds like you've had a rough couple of days." "You have no idea." "Actually, I do. It's all anyone's talking about in here." Barry leaned closer. "For what it's worth, plenty of folks agree with you. Hamilton's gotten too big for his boots." Marcus took a sip of his beer, thinking about how good it would feel to agree, to lean into the anger that had been simmering inside him for years. But then he remembered Theo's face that morning, small and scared about facing school. "No, Marcus," he said finally. "The people saying that are wrong. And so was I." He finished his beer quickly and headed home, where Lisa was waiting in the kitchen, her expression grim. "Theo's teacher called," she said. "Some kids were teasing him today. Called him Boo Boy." Marcus closed his eyes, the guilt washing over him anew. Where is he now? In his room. He wouldn't eat dinner. Marcus climbed the stairs slowly, trying to think of what to say. He found Theo sitting on his bed, holding a model Ferrari F1 car in his hands. But what caught Marcus's eye was the poster. On the wall, it wasn't the Ferrari poster that had been there last week. Instead, Lewis Hamilton smiled down at them, standing proudly with his British flag. "When did you get that?" Marcus asked, nodding at the poster. Theo looked up, his eyes wary. "Mrs. Wilson gave it to me, for my project." "What project?" "About someone we admire," Theo said quietly. "I picked Lewis Hamilton." Marcus stared at the Hamilton poster, then back at his son. "You picked Hamilton? After what happened at the race?" Theo nodded slowly. "Mrs. Wilson helped me research him. Did you know his dad worked 3 jobs so Lewis could race? And he was bullied when he was a kid too, because he was different from the other racers?" The preview words hit Marcus like a physical blow. Here was his son, finding inspiration in the very person Marcus had taught him to boo. "I didn't know you were interested in Hamilton," Marcus said carefully, sitting on the edge of Theo's bed. "I wasn't, not really. But after everyone at school talked about the video," Theo trailed off, fiddling with his model car. "I wanted to know why people liked him so much." Marcus swallowed hard. "And what did you find out?" "He's brave," Theo said simply. "He speaks up when things aren't fair, and he never gives up, even when people are mean to him." The room fell silent, except for the sound of rain starting to patter against the window. Marcus looked at the model Ferrari in Theo's hands, then at the Hamilton poster on the wall. two worlds colliding in his son's bedroom. "Dad?" Theo asked, his voice small. "Are you mad that I like Hamilton now?" "No, buddy," Marcus said quickly. "I'm not mad. I'm proud? Ashamed? Confused? I'm glad you're making up your own mind." He ruffled Theo's hair and promised they'd talk more in the morning. Downstairs, Lisa was waiting with a cup of tea and concerned eyes. "How is he?" she asked. "Better than his dad," Marcus admitted. "Did you know about this Hamilton project?" Lisa nodded. His teacher suggested it. She thought it might help him process everything. Marcus sank into a chair. "So, while I've been feeling sorry for myself, my 10-year-old has been figuring out how to be a better person." "Don't be too hard on yourself," Lisa said, though her tone suggested she was still disappointed in him. "But Marcus, this isn't going away. My sister called from Manchester today. The video made it to her local news." Marcus groaned. "Great. Now the whole country knows what a terrible father I am." "Not terrible," Lisa corrected. "Just human. But you need to make this right, not just for Theo, but for yourself too." The next morning, while getting ready for work, Marcus turned on the small TV in the kitchen. He nearly dropped his toast when he saw his own face on the screen. The local news was running a story about the incident. A Stevenage man is facing backlash after teaching his young son to boo Formula One champion Lewis Hamilton at last weekend's British Grand Prix, the reporter said. The image was blurred, but everyone in town would recognize him. Marcus quickly shut off the TV before Theo came downstairs. "I think I'll skip taking Theo to the go-kart track this weekend," Marcus told Lisa as he grabbed his keys. "I can't face the other parents right now." At work, things weren't any better. A customer refused to let Marcus work on his car, asking loudly for someone who knows how to respect champions. Mr. Greiner had to step in, and Marcus spent the day in the back of the shop, away from customers. By Friday, a full week after the race, Marcus felt like a prisoner in his own life. He stopped going to his weekly pub quiz. He turned down an invitation to his friend's barbecue. He even walked the long way to the corner shop to avoid running into neighbors. But he couldn't avoid the phone call from Mrs. Wilson, Theo's teacher. "Mr. Brennan, I'm concerned about Theo," she said. "He's become very withdrawn in class. Today during recess, he sat alone instead of playing with his friends." "It's because of the video, isn't it?" Marcus asked, already knowing the answer. "Partly," Mrs. Wilson admitted. "Children can be unkind. But I think it's more than that." Theo seems confused. "He told me he's afraid of disappointing you if he shows how much he admires Lewis Hamilton." Marcus closed his eyes, feeling the sting of tears. "I'd never be disappointed in him for that." "I think Theo needs to hear that from you," Mrs. Wilson said gently. That evening, Marcus asked Theo if he wanted to go for ice cream. Just the two of them. They sat on a bench in the town square, away from the busy playground where Theo might see classmates. "How's the Hamilton project coming along?" Marcus asked, as Theo licked his chocolate cone. Theo shrugged. "It's okay." "Just okay? Yesterday you seemed excited about it." Theo hesitated, then looked up at his dad. "Jimmy says I'm stupid for liking Hamilton when my dad hates him. He says I should pick someone else." Marcus felt his chest tighten. "And what do you think?" "I think—" Theo trailed off, then gathered his courage. "I think Lewis Hamilton is amazing, Dad. He came from our town and now he's the best driver ever. And he helps kids and talks about important things and—" He stopped abruptly. "Sorry." "Why are you sorry?" Marcus asked, puzzled. "Because "We're Ferrari fans," Theo said, as if it were obvious. "We're not supposed to like Hamilton." In that moment, Marcus saw clearly how his own bitterness had painted his son into a corner, forcing him to choose between his father's approval and his own admiration for a true champion. "Theo, listen to me," Marcus said, putting down his ice cream. "Being a Ferrari fan doesn't mean you have to hate Hamilton. That was my mistake, not yours. You can admire whoever inspires you." "Really?" Theo's eyes widened. "Really? And you know what? I think your project sounds great. I want to hear all about it when you're done." Theo's smile was like sunshine breaking through clouds. Walking home, hand in hand, Marcus felt a weight beginning to lift. But as they passed the newsagent's shop, he saw his blurred face on the front page of the local paper. "Local man faces backlash after teaching son to boo Hamilton." The chain reaction was still spreading, and fixing things with Theo was just the beginning. That night, after Theo was asleep, Marcus sat at the kitchen table with a pen and paper. "What are you doing?" Lisa asked, setting a cup of tea beside him. "Writing a letter," Marcus replied, his pen hovering over the blank page. "To Lewis Hamilton." Lisa's eyes widened. "To Hamilton? What are you going to say?" Marcus set down his pen. "I don't know yet, but I need to do something, and this feels right." "Do you think he'll even read it? He must get thousands of letters." "Probably not," Marcus admitted. "But I still need to write it. For me. For Theo." Lisa squeezed his shoulder. "I think it's a good idea." After she went to bed, Marcus sat alone at the kitchen table. The blank page stared back at him, intimidating. How do you apologize to someone you've never met for something they might never have seen? Where do you even begin? Marcus crumpled up 3 attempts before finally writing, "Dear Mr. Hamilton." He stared at those 3 words for nearly 10 minutes before continuing, "You don't know me, but you may have seen a video of me and my son at the British Grand Prix. I was the man teaching his 10-year-old boy to boo you." Marcus paused, reading what he'd written. It sounded so awful in black and white, but honesty seemed like the only way forward. "I'm writing to apologize, not because of the backlash the video has caused me, though it has been considerable, but because I've realized how wrong I was." The words came easier now, flowing from his pen. "I grew up in Stevenage, too, just a few years ahead of you. My dad used to take me to watch the go-karts, and sometimes we'd see you racing. 'That kid's going places,' my dad would say. He was right. When you first made it to Formula One, I cheered for you. It felt like one of us had made it. But somewhere along the way, I lost that feeling. Maybe it was when you called our hometown the slums. Or maybe it was just easier to resent your success than to face my own disappointments. I had dreams of racing too once. Not as good as you, not even close, but I loved it. Then my dad got sick, and racing wasn't possible anymore. I became a mechanic instead. I fix other people's cars now, and I watch F1 on Sundays, wondering, what if? Marcus stopped writing and took a deep breath. This was turning into more of a confession than an apology. He considered starting over, but decided to continue. Even if Hamilton never read it, Marcus needed to get these feelings out. None of that excuses what I did at Silverstone. The truth is, I failed as a father that day. I let my disappointments poison how I see the world, and I nearly passed that on to my son. Theo, that's my boy's name, has started a school project about you since the incident. His teacher suggested it might help him process everything. He's learning about your journey, your charitable work, your fight against racism. Things I should have taught him to admire, not boo. Yesterday, He told me you're brave because you speak up when things aren't fair. He's right, and I wasn't brave at all when I taught him to boo instead of appreciate greatness, regardless of team colors. He deserves better. I don't expect forgiveness, but I wanted you to know that one young boy in Stevenage now has your poster on his wall, and his father is trying to learn from him. Sincerely, Marcus Brennan. Marcus read the letter twice, wondering if he should mention how the video had affected his job or how Theo was being teased at school. But no, this wasn't about seeking pity. It was about taking responsibility. He sealed the letter in an envelope and addressed it to Mercedes-AMG F1 headquarters in Brackley. Then he added a sticky note to remind himself to post it in the morning. As Marcus climbed the stairs to bed, he paused at Theo's room. The door was slightly ajar, and the nightlight cast a soft glow over his sleeping son. The Hamilton poster watched over him from the wall. The next morning at breakfast, Theo was more animated than he had been all week. "Dad, can I show you what I found for my project?" he asked, tablet in hand. "Sure, buddy. What is it?" Theo pulled up a video of Hamilton visiting a children's hospital. "He does this a lot," Theo explained, "not just for cameras. Sometimes he goes without telling anyone." Marcus watched as Hamilton sat with young patients, laughing and talking with them as if he had all the time in the world. There was no sign of the flashy celebrity Marcus had come to resent, just a man bringing joy to kids who needed it. "That's pretty special," Marcus admitted. "And look at this," Theo continued, swiping to another page. He started something called Mission 44 to help kids from places like Stevenage get into racing and engineering. "I didn't know that," Marcus said honestly. "Mrs. Wilson says he's using his platform for good." "What's a platform?" Marcus smiled at his son's enthusiasm. "It means when someone famous speaks up, lots of people listen, so they can use that to help others." "Like when he talks about racism?" Theo asked. Marcus nodded, feeling a twinge of shame for how he'd dismissed Hamilton's activism as showing off. "Dad," Theo said more seriously, "do you think Lewis Hamilton knows about the video?" The question caught Marcus off guard. "I don't know, buddy. Maybe. Why?" "I just hope he knows I don't really hate him," Theo said, his voice small. "I was just copying you." Marcus swallowed hard. "I wrote him a letter last night, actually, telling him I was wrong and that you're learning all about him now." Theo's eyes lit up. "Really? Can I sign it too?" "It's already sealed, but you can write your own if you want." After Theo left for school, Marcus mailed the letter on his way to work. He didn't tell anyone about it, not even when Dale asked why he seemed less grumpy that day. "Just focusing on the important things," Marcus replied as he got back to work on a stubborn transmission. As the weekend approached, Marcus faced a dilemma. Saturday was their usual go-kart day. He and Theo had been going to the local track every weekend for nearly a year. But since the video, Marcus hadn't been able to face the other racing parents. "Do you think we should skip karting again this weekend?" he asked Lisa that evening. "Is that what you want to do?" she countered. "No," Marcus admitted, "but everyone there will have seen the video." "So what? You're not hiding from this, Marcus. That's not the example we want to set for Theo." Her tone softened. "Besides, he misses it. He asked me twice this week if you were taking him." The next morning, Marcus felt a knot in his stomach as they pulled into the karting track parking lot. Several parents turned to look as he helped Theo unload his gear from the car. "Well, well, look who's back," said a voice behind him. It was Gary Phillips, whose son often raced against Theo. "Didn't expect to see you here after your 15 minutes of fame." Marcus took a deep breath. "Gary, I know what I did was wrong. I've apologized. I'm trying to make amends, and I'm here for my son." Gary seemed taken aback by Marcus's directness. "Right. Well, good luck out there, Theo," he said before walking away. The morning session went better than Marcus expected. Some parents avoided him, but others made a point of being friendly. Theo seemed to forget all about the video once he was on the track, his lap times faster than ever. As they drove home, Theo couldn't stop talking about his racing. "Did you see when I overtook Jamie on the inside? That was just like Hamilton's. Move on, Verstappen at Copse last year." Marcus glanced at his son, surprised. "You've been studying Hamilton's racing too, not just his charity work?" "Of course, Dad. He's the GOAT." Theo grinned, using the slang for greatest of all time. For the first time in 2 weeks, Marcus laughed freely. His son, it seemed, was going to be just fine. That night, after Theo was asleep, Marcus checked his email one last time before bed. There was a new message from an unfamiliar address. Mercedes.mgf1ner@brackley.com. His heart jumped into his throat as he clicked to open it. Marcus stared at his screen, barely breathing, as he read, "Dear Mr. Brennan, thank you for your letter addressed to Lewis Hamilton. As you can imagine, Lewis receives thousands of messages from fans, but yours was brought to his attention due to its sincere nature. Lewis has read your letter and was moved by your honesty and your son's project about his career. He would like to meet both you and Theo in person. We would like to invite you to the upcoming Hungarian Grand Prix as Lewis's personal guests. Please reply to this email if you are interested, and we can make the necessary arrangements. Kind regards, Angela Cullen, personal assistant to Lewis Hamilton Mercedes." AMG F1 Marcus read the email 3 times, unable to believe what he was seeing. Hamilton had not only read his letter but wanted to meet them at the Hungarian Grand Prix. "Lisa!" he called, his voice cracking. "Lisa, you need to see this." Lisa hurried downstairs in her pajamas. "What's wrong? Is it Theo?" Marcus simply turned his laptop toward her. She read quickly, her eyes growing wider with each line. "Is this real?" she whispered when she finished. "Not someone playing a cruel joke?" "The email address looks official," Marcus said. "And how? Would anyone else know I sent a letter?" "Are you going to accept?" Lisa asked. Marcus hesitated. The thought of actually meeting Hamilton face-to-face made his stomach knot with anxiety. What would he say? How could he look the man in the eye after what he'd done? "I don't know," he admitted. "Part of me wants to say no. It's embarrassing enough without having to do it in person." Lisa sat beside him and took his hand. "This isn't about you feeling comfortable, Marcus. This is about making things right. And think of what it would mean for Theo. The thought of his son's face if he told him they were going to meet Lewis Hamilton in person, that settled it." "You're right," Marcus said. "Of course we'll go." He typed a quick reply, thanking Ms. Cullen and accepting the invitation. Then he sat back, dazed by how quickly everything was changing. "Should we tell Theo now or wait until it's confirmed?" he asked. "Let's wait for them to reply with details," Lisa said wisely. "Just in case." The confirmation came the next morning. 3 paddock passes for the Hungarian Grand Prix, 2 weeks away. The email included instructions on where to meet Mercedes staff upon arrival at the Hungaroring circuit. Just outside Budapest, Marcus waited until Theo got home from school before sharing the news. "Theo, remember that letter I sent to Lewis Hamilton?" he asked as his son unpacked his backpack at the kitchen table. "Uh-huh," Theo mumbled, distracted by a math worksheet. "Well, he read it." Theo's head snapped up. "Really? What did he say?" "Actually, he wants to meet us. In person." At the Hungarian Grand Prix, Theo's mouth fell open. For a moment, he seemed unable to speak. Then, "Are you serious, Dad?" "Completely serious. We leave in 2 weeks." Theo's face suddenly fell. "But what if he's mad at me for booing him?" Marcus knelt down to his son's level. "Theo, Lewis Hamilton isn't inviting us to scold us. That's not who he is. He read my letter, and he understood that we're sorry for what happened." "But he'll hate me," Theo whispered, eyes wide with worry. "No," Marcus said firmly, pulling his son into a hug. "That's not who Lewis is, and it's not who we're going to be anymore either." That night, Marcus faced a new problem. Flights to Budapest were expensive, especially on short notice. The hotel costs would stretch their budget to the breaking point. His recent raise had been put on hold after the video incident, and their savings were limited. "I can pick up some extra shifts," he told Lisa, as they discussed finances in hushed tones after Theo went to bed. "And maybe we can use that old tent and camp instead of staying at a hotel." "Marcus, be realistic. We can't take Theo camping in a foreign country where we don't speak the language." Marcus ran his hands through his hair. "We have to make this work, Lisa. We can't tell Theo we can't go after getting his hopes up." "What about your overtime pay from the Watson job last month?" "Already earmarked for the roof repair." Marcus sighed. In the end, they decided Marcus would work double shifts for the next 2 weeks, and they'd stay at the cheapest decent hotel they could find. Lisa would stay home to save money, though she insisted on coming to the airport to see them off. The next 2 weeks passed in a blur of preparation and anticipation. Marcus worked until his back ached and his hands were rough with calluses. At night, he helped Theo research Hungary and the famous Hungaroring Circuit, where so many classic F1 battles had taken place. Theo's teacher, Mrs. Wilson, gave him permission to use the trip as part of his Hamilton project. She even helped him prepare some questions to ask if he got the chance to speak with the champion. "Do you think he'll let me take a picture with him?" Theo asked one evening as they packed his small suitcase. "I'm sure he will," Marcus replied, though honestly, he had no idea what to expect from the meeting. Would it be a quick handshake in a crowded paddock or something more? The night before their flight, Marcus couldn't sleep. He sat in the living room, scrolling through Hamilton's Instagram account, something he'd never done before. The photos showed a complex person, not just a racing driver. Hamilton with his dog, Hamilton supporting environmental causes, Hamilton with young fans from all backgrounds. The man Marcus had taught his son to boo was, he realized, someone worth admiring after all. As their plane took off from London 2 days later, Theo pressed his face against the window, watching his home country disappear beneath the clouds. It was his first time abroad, his first time on a plane. "Are you nervous?" Marcus asked. Theo nodded. "What if I say something stupid?" "You won't," Marcus assured him. "Just be yourself." "What about you, Dad? Are you nervous?" Marcus smiled. Terrified. But as the plane carried them over Europe toward Hungary, Marcus felt something else beneath the nervousness. Hope. Hope that this journey, not just to Budapest, but the longer journey he and Theo had been on since that rainy day at Silverstone, might end in understanding rather than bitterness. As the captain announced their descent into Budapest, Theo grabbed his father's hand. "Dad," he said quietly, "whatever happens tomorrow, I'm glad we're doing this together." Marcus squeezed his son's hand. "Me too, buddy. Me too." Budapest welcomed them with warm summer air and a language neither of them understood. After collecting their small suitcase from the baggage claim, Marcus navigated them to a taxi stand using the guide he'd printed out at home. Karam, Hotel Novus, Marcus said carefully, reading from his note as they climbed into the taxi. The driver nodded and pulled away from the curb. Theo pressed his face against the window, taking in the unfamiliar streets and signs. "Everything looks different," he whispered. As they crossed the famous chain bridge over the Danube River, both Marcus and Theo gasped at the sight of the Hungarian Parliament building lit up against the evening sky, its reflection shimmering in the water below. "It's like a castle," Theo exclaimed. Their hotel was small but clean, located in a quiet neighborhood about 30 minutes from the Hungaroring circuit. After checking in, they collapsed onto their beds, exhausted from the journey but too excited to sleep. "What if Lewis Hamilton doesn't like me?" Theo asked suddenly, staring at the ceiling. Marcus propped himself up on one elbow. "Theo, from everything you've learned about him in your project, does Hamilton seem like someone who would hold a grudge against a 10-year-old boy?" Theo thought about it. "No," he admitted, "but I still booed him." "And you're sorry about that, right?" "Really sorry." "Then that's what matters," Marcus said. "People make mistakes. It's what you do afterward that counts." He hoped he was right, not just for Theo's sake, but for his own. As tired as he was, Marcus lay awake for hours, rehearsing what he might say when face-to-face with the 7-time world champion. The next morning, they took a bus tour of Budapest, trying to distract themselves from their nerves. They admired the Fisherman's Bastion, a fairy tale lookout tower on the Buda side of the city, and walked through the Great Market Hall, where Theo marveled at the strange foods and colorful peppers hanging from stalls. "Can we try some of this?" Theo asked, pointing at a traditional Hungarian langos, fried dough topped with sour cream and cheese. "Why not?" Marcus said. "When in Hungary, right?" They sat on a bench near the market, sharing the delicious but messy treat. "Dad," Theo said between bites, "if Lewis Hamilton likes me, do you think I could get his autograph for my project?" "I'm sure that would be fine," Marcus replied. "Just remember to be polite about it. I practiced saying please and thank you 50 times last night," Theo confessed. Marcus laughed, ruffling his son's hair. "50 times, huh? I guess you're ready then." That afternoon, they took a local train to the Hungaroring for their scheduled track tour. Along with about 20 other fans, they were guided around the historic circuit, seeing the pit lane, the podium, and even walking along a section of the track itself. This is where Hamilton made that amazing pass on Verstappen in 2021, Theo informed Marcus, as they stood at Turn 1, the boy's knowledge of F1 history now surpassing his father's. "You really have been studying," Marcus said, impressed. The tour guide, a friendly woman named Zsofia, pointed out other famous spots around the track. "And over there is where Michael Schumacher won his 4th World Championship in 2001, she said, gesturing toward the final corner. Marcus remembered watching that race on TV with his father, both of them cheering for the Ferrari legend. Racing had been something that connected them, just as it now connected him with Theo, though in a different way than he'd expected. As the tour was concluding, Zsofia's phone rang. She stepped away to answer it, then approached Marcus with a smile. "Mr. Brennan? There's been a change of plans. You and your son are wanted at the Mercedes garage." Marcus checked his watch. "But we're not scheduled to meet them until tomorrow." "Plans change in Formula One," Zsofia said with a wink. "Someone important is asking for you now." Theo grabbed Marcus's hand, squeezing it tightly. "Is it him? Is it Lewis?" "I don't know," Marcus said honestly, his heart suddenly racing. "But I guess we're about to find out." Zsofia led them away from the tour group, through a series of security checkpoints where their special passes were carefully checked. With each step toward the F1 paddock, Theo walked closer to Marcus, until he was practically hiding behind him. The paddock was buzzing with activity. Team personnel rushing between motorhomes, journalists conducting interviews, mechanics pushing equipment trolleys. Theo's eyes were wide, trying to take it all in at once. "Look, Dad!" he whispered excitedly. "That's Charles Leclerc over there." The Ferrari driver was chatting with his engineer nearby, unaware of the small boy watching him with wonder. Zofia led them to the Mercedes garage, where security guards checked their passes once more before allowing them inside. The gleaming space was a hive of activity. Engineers hunched over computers, mechanics making final adjustments to the two silver cars. "This way," Zofia said, guiding them deeper into the garage. And then, suddenly, Toto Wolff, the team principal of Mercedes, AMG F1, was walking toward them. Tall and imposing in his team uniform, he smiled warmly as he approached. "Mr. Brennan, and you must be Theo," he said, his Austrian accent distinct, but his English perfect. "Thank you for coming on such short notice." Marcus found himself stammering. "It's an honor, Mr. Wolff. We weren't expecting to meet you." "Please, call me Toto," he replied, then crouched down to Theo's level. "I hear you're doing a school project on Lewis." Theo nodded, seemingly unable to speak. "Well, he's looking forward to talking with you about it," Toto said, standing back up. "He's just finishing a meeting with his race engineer. If you'll follow me?" They walked through the garage toward the back, where private rooms housed the team's meetings and briefings. Theo's hand was sweaty in Marcus's, his nervousness palpable. And there he was, Lewis Hamilton, dressed in team gear, deep in conversation with a man Marcus recognized as Peter Bonington, Hamilton's longtime race engineer. Hamilton looked up as they approached, his expression shifting into a warm smile. "You must be Theo," he said, walking over and kneeling down to the boy's level. "And you're Marcus. Thank you both for coming." Marcus felt his throat tighten. "Sir, he began, but Hamilton shook his head. "Let's talk somewhere quieter," he said, looking around at the busy garage. "There's a meeting room we can use." As they followed Hamilton through the garage, Theo stayed close to Marcus, occasionally stealing glances at the champion. For his part, Marcus noticed how the team members they passed all nodded respectfully to Hamilton, not with fear, but with genuine admiration. Hamilton opened a door to a small room with a table and chairs. "Come on in," he said, gesturing for them to enter first. "I think we have a lot to talk about." As Marcus stepped into the room, he had the strange feeling that his life was about to change again. Just as it had when the video first went viral. But this time, maybe for the better. The meeting room was simple but comfortable, with a large table surrounded by chairs. Photos of past Mercedes victories lined the walls, and a small refrigerator hummed quietly in the corner. "Please, have a seat," Hamilton said, gesturing to the chairs. "Can I get you anything? Water? A soda for you, Theo?" "Yes, please," Theo whispered, finding his voice at last. Hamilton opened the refrigerator and handed Theo a can of soda, then offered Marcus a bottle of water. For himself, he chose a green smoothie. "So," Hamilton said, as he sat down across from them. "I got your letter, Marcus." Marcus nodded, his mouth suddenly dry despite the water. "I didn't think you'd actually read it." "I almost didn't," Hamilton admitted. "My team filters most of my mail, but Angela, my assistant, thought there was something sincere about yours." There was an awkward pause. Theo looked nervously between his father and his hero, seemingly afraid to say anything. "Sir, I want to apologize in person," Marcus finally said. "What I did was..." Hamilton held up a hand to stop him. "Before you continue, There's something I'd like to say. He turned to Theo. Would it be okay if I talk to your dad about Stevenage for a minute? Theo nodded, eyes wide. You know I'm from there too, Hamilton said to Marcus. And I heard what? I said hurt people's feelings. That wasn't right, and I'm sorry. Marcus was stunned. The 7-time world champion was apologizing to him. I was trying to talk about how far I'd come, Hamilton continued, but I did it by putting down our hometown. The truth is, I'm proud of where I'm from. Stevenage made me who I am. Marcus found himself nodding. I understand. I think I was looking for reasons to be angry, and that comment gave me one. Hamilton seemed to relax slightly. You mentioned in your letter that you used to watch me race go-karts. My dad and I did, yeah, at Rye House Track. You were something special even then. A smile crossed Hamilton's face. Rye House. Man, that takes me back. Your dad was right. I spent every free moment I had there. The conversation shifted into memories of Stevenage, places they both knew, schools they'd attended, though years apart. With each shared reference, the tension in the room eased. Theo, who had been quiet until now, suddenly spoke up. Did you really live on Pear Tree Way? That's just 2 streets from our house. Hamilton smiled. I did. Small world, huh? Theo's been researching you for his school project, Marcus explained. He's learned more about you in 2 weeks than I knew in 15 years of watching you race. Is that right? Hamilton turned to Theo. What's your project about exactly? Theo blushed, but straightened his shoulders. It's called People We Admire. I'm writing about how you became a racing driver and all the things you do to help people. Like what? Hamilton asked, seeming genuinely curious. Like Mission 44, Theo said eagerly, and how you speak up about racism and the environment, and how you visit sick kids in hospitals. Hamilton's expression softened. You've done your homework. Mrs. Wilson, that's my teacher, helped me find articles, Theo explained. Did you really fight bullies when you were my age? Hamilton glanced at Marcus, then back to Theo. I did. I was one of the only black kids in karting back then. Some people didn't like that. What did you do? Theo asked. I let my racing do the talking, Hamilton said. Every time someone said I didn't belong, I just drove faster. Marcus watched his son hanging on Hamilton's every word. The bitter irony wasn't lost on him. The man he'd taught Theo to boo was now teaching his son about standing up to bullies. No, Hamilton said, turning his attention back to Marcus. I wasn't always the most popular driver. I get booed sometimes. It used to really bother me. And now? Marcus asked. Now I understand it's part of sports. People pick sides. They have favorites. He paused. But what touched me about your letter was that you recognized how it affected Theo. That took courage. Marcus felt a lump forming in his throat. I booed you because it was easier than facing my own disappointments, he admitted, echoing what he'd written in his letter. I'm truly sorry, Hamilton nodded. We all have moments we're not proud of, but it's what we do next that matters. He reached into his pocket and pulled out a small green wristband. Theo, I want to give you this. It's the same one I wear during races. He handed it to the boy. It reminds me that we all make mistakes. The important thing is to learn from them. Theo accepted the wristband with trembling hands. Thank you, Mr. Hamilton. Call me Lewis, please, Hamilton said with a smile. For nearly an hour, they talked, not as a famous driver and fans, but as 3 people getting to know each other. Hamilton asked Theo about school, about his go-karting, about his friends, and to Marcus's surprise, Hamilton seemed genuinely interested in his work as a mechanic. "You fix cars for a living, and I drive them for a living," Hamilton said. "We're not so different," Marcus laughed. "Except you drive slightly faster cars than I fix." "True," Hamilton agreed with a grin, "but every driver needs good mechanics. Without them, we're just people sitting in expensive metal boxes." As their conversation continued, Marcus realized something important. The Lewis Hamilton he had resented wasn't real. It was a character he'd created in his mind, a symbol of his own frustrations. The real person sitting across from them was thoughtful, humble about his roots, and genuinely kind to his son. Theo had pulled out his list of questions for his project, and Hamilton patiently answered each one. What was his favorite race? Silverstone, 2008, his first home win. Did he still get nervous before races? Every single time. What advice would he give to young drivers? Work harder than everyone else and never give up on your dreams. As their time together began to draw to a close, Hamilton had a question of his own. "Theo, I hear you race go-karts back home. Are you any good?" Theo looked to his dad, uncertain how to answer. "He's getting better every weekend," Marcus said proudly. "His lap times are coming down." Hamilton nodded thoughtfully. "You know, I'm setting up a karting program back in the UK for kids who have the talent, but maybe not the opportunity I had. Would you be interested in trying out?" Theo's mouth fell open. "Me? Really?" "Really," Hamilton confirmed. "No promises, but we're always looking for young drivers with passion." As they prepared to leave, Hamilton shook Marcus's hand firmly. "Thank you for writing that letter. It meant more than you know." "Thank you for reading it," Marcus replied. "And for being so kind to Theo." Hamilton smiled. "Listen, would you both like to join us tomorrow? I'd like to make a special announcement, and I'd appreciate it if you could be there." "We'd be honored," Marcus said, though he had no idea what Hamilton was talking about. As they walked back through the garage, Hamilton stopped to sign Theo's program and take a photo with him. Marcus watched as his son stood proudly next to his new hero, beaming with a joy that had been missing since the booing incident. Outside, as they made their way back toward the circuit exit, Theo was practically bouncing with excitement. "Dad, did you hear? Lewis Hamilton wants me to try out for his karting program, and he gave me his wristband, and he answered all my questions." "And I heard, buddy," Marcus laughed. "I was there, remember?" "Do you think he really likes me? He wasn't just being nice?" Marcus thought about the genuine interest Hamilton had shown in Theo's questions, the way he'd knelt down to the boy's level when they first met, the personal wristband he'd given him. "I think he really likes you," Marcus said. "And you know." "What? I think I've been wrong about him for a long time." As they walked back to catch the train to their hotel, Marcus found himself wondering what Hamilton's special announcement would be. Whatever it was, he was grateful for the chance to be there. Not as the man who booed Lewis Hamilton, but as someone who was beginning to understand the true meaning of respect. That evening at the hotel, Theo couldn't stop talking about their meeting with Hamilton. He kept looking at the green wristband, now proudly wrapped around his small wrist. "Dad, can I call Mom and tell her?" he asked, bouncing on his bed. "Of course," Marcus smiled, dialing Lisa's number on his phone. When Lisa answered, Theo launched into a breathless account of their day, barely pausing for breath. "And then Lewis, he said I could call him Lewis, Mom, gave me his own wristband that he wears during races, and he said I could try out for his karting program. And tomorrow, we're going to a special announcement and—" "Slow down, sweetheart," Lisa laughed. "I can barely understand you." While Theo continued to share every detail with his mother, Marcus stepped onto the small hotel balcony. The sun was setting over Budapest, painting the sky in shades of orange and pink. He took a deep breath, trying to process everything that had happened. Yesterday, he'd been Marcus Brennan, the mechanic who'd been caught on video teaching his son to boo Lewis Hamilton. Today, he was Marcus Brennan, who'd spent an hour having a genuine conversation with the seven-time world champion, and who'd watched his son's face light up with joy and admiration. When Theo finally finished his call with Lisa, he joined his dad on the balcony. "Dad?" he asked, his voice suddenly serious. "Why were you mad at Lewis before? The real reason?" Marcus considered the question carefully. He owed his son honesty. "I think I was jealous," he admitted. "Lewis and I are about the same age, both from Stevenage. We both loved racing when we were kids. But he became a champion, and Marcus gestured vaguely. "I fix cars at Greiner's garage." "But you're the best mechanic in town," Theo said loyally. "Mr. Greiner always says so." Marcus smiled and ruffled his son's hair. "Thanks, buddy. But I think I blamed Lewis for my own disappointments. That wasn't fair to him. And it wasn't fair to you, teaching you to do the same." Theo considered this. "So it wasn't really about Ferrari versus Mercedes?" "Not really, no," Marcus said. "That was just an excuse." They were quiet for a moment, watching the city lights come on as darkness fell. "You know," Marcus said, "I'm proud of you, Theo. You've handled all this better than I have." "I was scared Lewis would hate me," Theo admitted. "But he was nice. Really nice. That's because he's a good person. I should have seen that sooner." Later that night, as Theo slept, Marcus sent a text to Lisa. "Things went better than I could have imagined. Hamilton was incredible with Theo. I think we both misjudged him." She replied immediately, "I'm so glad. Theo sounded happier than he has in weeks." "Whatever happens tomorrow, this trip was worth it," Marcus agreed. Even if the special announcement turned out to be nothing important, they'd already received more than he'd dared to hope for: forgiveness, understanding, and a chance for Theo to meet his new hero. The next morning dawned bright and clear. Perfect weather for a Grand Prix weekend. They arrived at the circuit early, their special passes allowing them into areas most fans never got to see. Toto Wolff himself greeted them at the Mercedes hospitality area, where team members were having breakfast before the day's practice sessions. "Lewis asked me to look after you two today," Wolff explained, leading them to a table loaded with food. "Please, help yourselves. He'll join us after his morning briefing." Theo's eyes were wide as he spotted several drivers from other teams, chatting nearby. "Dad, that's Carlos Sainz," he whispered, pointing at the Ferrari driver. "And that's Lando Norris with him," Marcus added, recognizing the McLaren driver. As they ate breakfast, different team members stopped by their table to chat. A race engineer explained the track layout to Theo, showing him the challenging corners where overtaking was possible. A strategist talked through tire choices for the weekend, explaining how weather affected their decisions. Marcus was struck by how welcoming everyone was. There were no suspicious glances, no whispers about the man from the video. Either they didn't know who he was, or, more likely, Hamilton had asked them to make Theo and him feel comfortable. When Hamilton finally arrived, he was dressed in his racing suit, ready for the day's first practice session. "Sorry to keep you waiting," he said, sliding into a chair beside Theo. "How was your evening?" "Great," Theo replied. "I told Mom all about meeting you and she couldn't believe it." Hamilton smiled. "I spoke with Angela after you left yesterday. Everything's arranged for the announcement after qualifying today. You'll be in the Mercedes box during the session, if that's okay?" More than okay, Marcus said, still amazed by how this was all unfolding. Perfect. I need to get to the garage now, but Toto will make sure you're taken care of. Hamilton stood, then paused. Oh, and Theo? Good luck with your project. I have a feeling it's going to be special. As Hamilton walked away, Theo turned to Marcus with shining eyes. Dad, this is the best day ever. The morning practice session was thrilling to watch from the Mercedes box, where Toto Wolff himself explained strategies and technical details to the fascinated boy. When Hamilton set the fastest lap time, Theo cheered louder than anyone. During the lunch break, they were invited to tour more of the paddock. They saw the media center where journalists were writing their stories, the medical center where doctors stood ready to help injured drivers, and even the race control room where officials monitored every part of the track. It's like a small city, Marcus remarked as they walked past team motorhomes. A city where everyone has one goal, to go faster than everyone else, Toto agreed with a smile. As they passed the Ferrari garage, Theo slowed down, looking at the bright red cars with interest. It's okay to still like Ferrari, Toto said, noticing the boy's hesitation. Lewis would be the first to tell you that. Respect doesn't mean you can't have favorites. Theo nodded, relieved. I like both now, he decided, Ferrari and Mercedes. A diplomatic answer, Toto laughed. You'll go far in this sport. Throughout the day, Marcus noticed how Theo was changing before his eyes. The shy, anxious boy who'd been afraid to face classmates after the video had been replaced by a confident child asking thoughtful questions of world-class engineers and mechanics. And something was changing in Marcus too. The bitterness he'd carried for so long was melting away, replaced by a sense of perspective he hadn't felt in years. When qualifying came, they watched from the Mercedes box as Hamilton put his car on the front row, only narrowly missing pole position. Theo jumped up and down with excitement. He almost had it, he shouted. Second is still very good, Marcus reminded him, especially on this track. After qualifying, a Mercedes team member approached them. Lewis is ready for you now, she said. The press conference is about to begin. They followed the team member through the paddock to the media center, where journalists from around the world were gathering. Hamilton was already seated at a table. On a small stage, microphones arranged in front of him. Camera flashes lit up the room as photographers captured his post-qualifying reactions. The Mercedes representative led Marcus and Theo to seats near the front. Wait here, she whispered. Lewis will call you up when he's ready. Theo fidgeted nervously beside Marcus, tugging at his Hamilton wristband. Why are there so many people? He whispered. This is how drivers talk to reporters after qualifying, Marcus explained. They share their thoughts about the session and their plans for the race. Hamilton was answering questions about his qualifying lap, the track conditions, and his strategy for tomorrow's race. He seemed completely at ease despite the dozens of cameras pointed at him. After about 10 minutes, Hamilton paused and looked directly at Marcus and Theo. Actually, I have a special announcement to make today, he said, and I'd like to invite some guests to join me. The Mercedes representative signaled for them to move to the stage. Theo gripped his father's hand tightly as they walked up to stand beside Hamilton. The camera flashes intensified, and Marcus felt momentarily blinded. I'd like you all to meet my special guests today, Hamilton said, putting his arm around Theo's shoulders. This young man reminds me of myself at his age, passionate about racing and full of potential. Theo stood frozen, eyes wide with amazement, as Hamilton continued. Many of you have seen the viral video from Silverstone involving these two, Hamilton said. The room went suddenly quiet, journalists leaning forward in their seats. But what you didn't see was what happened afterward. Theo has been learning about my journey. my values, and the work I do beyond racing. And his father, Marcus, had the courage to reach out and make things right. A reporter raised her hand. "Lewis, are you saying you've forgiven them for the booing incident?" Hamilton smiled. "There was nothing to forgive. We all have moments we regret, especially in the heat of competition. What matters is what we learn from them." He turned to look directly at Theo. "This young man's interest in my story has inspired me to launch something I've been thinking about for a long time." Hamilton revealed his surprise. He was launching a new karting scholarship program for underprivileged youth, inspired by his conversation with Marcus and Theo. The first track would be built in Stevenage, giving local kids the opportunity Hamilton had been lucky enough to have. "Sometimes, the most important conversations come from unexpected places," Hamilton told the reporters, glancing at Marcus. "This family reminded me of my roots, of where I started, and why it's so important to create pathways for the next generation." Cameras clicked rapidly as Hamilton announced the details of the program. 10 scholarships would be awarded annually to children who showed promise but lacked financial resources. The program would cover equipment, entry fees, and coaching. "And I'm pleased to announce that Theo here will be invited to our first evaluation day," Hamilton added, giving the boy's shoulder a squeeze. A reporter directed a question to Marcus. "Sir, how does it feel to go from that viral booing video to standing here with Lewis Hamilton?" Marcus felt a lump in his throat. "It feels like a lesson in humility," he said honestly, "and in the power of second chances. Lewis could have ignored my letter, but instead, he showed my son and me what true character looks like." Another reporter asked Theo a question, but the boy was too overwhelmed to speak. Hamilton smoothly stepped in. "I think Theo's still processing all this excitement, but I can tell you that his passion for racing and his openness to learning have impressed everyone on my team who's met him." After a few more questions, the press conference ended. As they walked away from the media center, Theo finally found his voice again. "Dad, did that really happen? Is Lewis really going to build a karting track in Stevenage?" "It really happened," Marcus confirmed, still stunned himself. "And you're going to be part of it." They spent the rest of the day in a happy daze, watching the final practice sessions and exploring more of the circuit. Team members who passed them now nodded in recognition. They had become minor celebrities in the paddock. That evening in their hotel room, Marcus's phone buzzed constantly with messages from home. The press conference had been broadcast internationally, and friends and family had spotted them on TV. Lisa called, her voice bubbling with excitement. "Marcus, it's all over the news here. Hamilton launches karting program inspired by Young. Fan. Theo's school is going crazy. Mrs. Wilson called me in tears." "It's been unreal," Marcus told her. "I keep thinking I'm going to wake up and find it was all a dream." "Well, dream or not, you'd better get some sleep," Lisa advised. "Tomorrow's the big race, and I want to hear every detail when you get home." Race day dawned bright and clear. The grandstands were packed with fans waving flags and wearing Team 8 colors. Thanks to their special passes, Marcus and Theo watched the race from the Mercedes box, alongside Toto Wolff and other team executives. Hamilton drove brilliantly that day, battling through the field after a difficult start. When he crossed the finish line in second place, Theo cheered louder than anyone. "He almost won!" Theo exclaimed, his voice hoarse from shouting. "Second place is still a podium," Marcus reminded him. "That's a great result." After the podium ceremony, where Hamilton received his trophy and sprayed champagne, they expected to say their goodbyes and head home. Their flight back to London was early the next morning, and they needed to pack. But Hamilton had one more surprise. He invited them to join him for dinner at a restaurant overlooking the Danube. "Just the three of us," he said. "No press, no team, just a chance to talk without all the craziness." The restaurant was on the Buda side of the river, with a stunning view of the illuminated Parliament building. Hamilton arrived in casual clothes, looking relaxed after the intensity of the race. "I wanted to thank you both properly," he said as they sat down. "This weekend meant a lot to me." "Thank us?" Marcus was confused. "We should be thanking you. You've been incredibly generous." Hamilton shook his head. "You don't understand. Your letter came at a time when I was struggling too, questioning whether to continue in F1, wondering if I still had the fire, reading about Theo's project, how he learned about my journey. It reminded me why I do this." Marcus was speechless. The idea that his letter had somehow helped Hamilton seemed impossible. "We all need reminders of our better selves sometimes," Hamilton continued. "You gave me that." As they enjoyed their meal, Hamilton shared stories from his career. The victories, the defeats, the lessons learned along the way. He asked Theo about his go-karting, studying the boys' lap times that Marcus had saved on his phone. "You've got good consistency," Hamilton told Theo seriously. "That's important. Speed comes with practice, but consistency, that shows you have the right instincts." Theo glowed with pride. As they rejoined the crowded restaurant after their meal, Marcus noticed a young boy watching Hamilton with awe, just as Theo once had. The boy's father stood beside him, looking uncomfortable in the fancy surroundings, much as Marcus had felt months ago. Hamilton noticed them too. With a smile, he walked over to say hello, making the boy's night with a quick photograph and an encouraging word. Marcus watched, understanding now what Theo had seen all along, a champion who had never forgotten where he came from. Türunder, home from Budapest, seemed to pass in minutes, with Theo chattering excitedly the whole way. He had barely slept, too wound up from their extraordinary weekend. Marcus was exhausted, but happy, quietly watching his son's animated face as he recounted every detail to the passenger sitting next to them. Lisa was waiting at the airport, rushing forward to hug them both as they came through the arrivals gate. "My famous boys!" she exclaimed, kissing Theo's forehead. "I saw you on TV." "Mom, did you see Louis put his arm around me?" Theo asked, bouncing on his toes. "And did you hear about the karting program? And guess what? He looked at my lap times and said, 'I have good consistency.'" Lisa laughed, linking arms with Marcus as they walked to the car. "I want to hear everything," she said. "But maybe after you've both had some sleep?" Back home in Stevenage, things felt both familiar and different. Their small house was exactly as they'd left it, but Marcus and Theo had returned, changed. The T.E. Hamilton poster in Theo's room now had a special significance. It was signed, "To Theo, Dream Big, Lewis Hamilton." The first day back, Marcus returned to work at Griner's garage. He'd expected awkward questions about the press conference, maybe some teasing from Dale and the other mechanics. Instead, he found a small celebration waiting. "There he is," Mr. Griner called as Marcus walked in. "Our celebrity mechanic." BT Orb garage was decorated with a hastily made banner. "Congrats, Marcus and Theo." His co-workers applauded as he entered, some holding up newspaper articles featuring photos of him and Theo with Hamilton. "You're famous, mate," Dale said, slapping him on the back. "And for something good this time." Mr. Griner pulled Marcus aside after the welcome. "I'm proud of you," he said. "Takes courage to admit when you're wrong, especially in front of the whole world." He paused. "That promotion we talked about before all this happened, It's yours if you still want it. Really? Marcus was stunned. Even after the video? Especially after how you handled it, Mr. Greiner replied. Shows character. The local newspaper ran a follow-up story. Stevenage man's journey from viral video to Hamilton partnership. This time, they used Marcus's full name with his permission, focusing on the positive outcome and Hamilton's new karting initiative. At home, Marcus found himself watching F1 races differently. He still supported Ferrari. Old loyalties died hard, but he no longer felt the need to resent other drivers' success. When Hamilton won his next race, Marcus and Theo cheered together from their living room sofa. "Do you think Lewis remembers us?" Theo asked one evening as they watched highlights of a recent Grand Prix. "I'm sure he does," Marcus replied. "People like Lewis don't make promises they don't intend to keep." Sure enough, 2 weeks later, an email arrived from Mercedes with details about the first evaluation day for Hamilton's karting program. It was scheduled for the following month at a track near London, with Hamilton himself planning to attend. Theo threw himself into preparation, practicing at the local track every weekend. Marcus watched proudly as his son's times improved steadily. "You're getting really good," he told Theo after a particularly fast session. "I want to make Lewis proud," Theo said simply. At school, Theo thrived. His project on Hamilton earned him top marks, and Mrs. Wilson asked if he would present it at a special assembly. The teasing stopped. Instead, friends asked him what Hamilton was really like. "He's normal," Theo would tell them, "like us, but he works really hard and never gives up." Marcus, too, found himself sharing what he'd learned. When a customer at the garage made a dismissive comment about Hamilton's activism, Marcus spoke up. "Actually, he's using his platform to help kids from places like Stevenage," he explained. "My son is part of his new program." The customer looked surprised but interested. "Really? I hadn't heard about that." "Most people only see what's on the track," Marcus said. "There's a lot more to him than that." As summer turned to autumn, Marcus and Theo started volunteering at local events related to Hamilton's karting program. They helped organize information sessions for parents, explaining how children could apply for scholarships. At one such event, a local reporter approached Marcus. "I covered the original booing story," she admitted. "Would you be willing to do a follow-up interview about how things have changed?" Marcus hesitated, then nodded. "If it helps people understand the impact of the program, sure." "What about the viral video?" she asked. "How do you feel about it now?" "It was my worst moment," Marcus admitted. "But sometimes your worst moments lead to your best changes." The reporter seemed surprised by his candor. "That's a powerful perspective." "It's the truth," Marcus said simply. At home that evening, Marcus found Theo sitting quietly at the kitchen table, looking at the wristband Hamilton had given him in Hungary. "You okay, buddy?" Marcus asked, sitting down beside him. "Dad, do you think I'll make it into the karting program?" Theo's voice was small, uncertain. "I don't know," Marcus answered honestly. "There will be a lot of talented kids there. But that's not what matters most." "What matters then?" "That you try your best. That you enjoy racing for the love of it, not just to win." "That's what Lewis would say, I think." Theo nodded, considering his father's words. "Even if I don't make it, I'm glad we met him." "Me too, buddy," Marcus said, realizing how true it was. "Me too." The evaluation day finally arrived. The track was busy with excited children and nervous parents. Hamilton, true to his word, was there, watching carefully as each young driver took their turn on the track. When it was Theo's turn, Marcus felt more nervous than his son looked. Theo approached the kart with confidence, adjusted his helmet, and gave his father a thumbs up before driving onto the track. His laps weren't the fastest of the day, but they were smooth and consistent. When he finished and removed his helmet, his face was flushed with joy regardless of the outcome. "I did it, Dad!" he shouted, running to Marcus. "Did you see my overtake on the hairpin?" "I saw it," Marcus assured him, pulling him into a hug. "You were brilliant." As they waited for the judge's decision, Hamilton came over to chat with them. "Good driving out there, Theo," he said. "You've improved since we last talked." "I've been practicing really hard," Theo told him proudly. Hamilton nodded approvingly. It shows. Whether Theo would be selected for the program or not, Marcus realized it didn't really matter. The real victory had already been won. In Theo's newfound confidence, in Marcus's own growth, and in the unlikely friendship they'd formed with a champion they once booed. As they drove home that evening, Theo fell asleep in the back seat, exhausted from the day's excitement. Marcus glanced at him in the rearview mirror and smiled. 6 months ago, one reckless moment had nearly defined them, both. Now, that moment had become just one step in a much longer, more meaningful journey. Winter settled over Stevenage, bringing frosty mornings and early sunsets. The Formula One season had ended, with Hamilton narrowly missing the championship by just 5 points. Despite not winning the title, he'd finished the year with 3 consecutive race victories, performances that Theo had watched with the intensity of a true fan. The results of the karting program selection had arrived in November. Theo hadn't been chosen for the first group of scholarship recipients, but the email had included personal feedback from the coaches. Excellent potential, needs more experience in wet conditions, recommended for reconsideration next year. Rather than being disappointed, Theo had pinned the feedback to his bulletin board as motivation. Every weekend, rain or shine, he practiced at the local track, especially focusing on wet weather driving. Just like Lewis in Brazil 2016, he would say, referring to Hamilton's legendary wet weather victory. The boy who had once booed Hamilton was now modeling himself after the champion's determination. Marcus had been promoted to manager at Greiner's Garage, overseeing a team of 5 mechanics. One of his first initiatives was a youth apprenticeship program, giving local teenagers hands-on experience with car repairs. Mr. Greiner had been impressed with the idea, especially when Marcus explained how it was inspired by Hamilton's philosophy of creating opportunities for young people. If Lewis Hamilton can use his success to lift others up, we can do the same. In our own small way, Marcus had explained, even Lisa had been touched by their experience. She'd started volunteering at Theo's school, helping coordinate a program that taught children about diversity in sports. The Hamilton poster in Theo's room had become a symbol for their whole family, a reminder of how a single moment of misunderstanding could transform into something positive. 6 months after Hungary, during the winter break between F1 seasons, Marcus received another message from the Mercedes team. He was at work when the email arrived, and he had to read it twice to make sure he wasn't misunderstanding. Hamilton was coming to Stevenage for the groundbreaking ceremony of the new karting track and wanted the Brennan family to attend as his special guests. "It's really happening," Marcus murmured, showing the email to Mr. Greiner. "The track Lewis promised to build in Stevenage. And he specifically asked for you 3 to be there?" Mr. Greiner whistled. "You've come a long way from that video, my friend." That evening, Marcus shared the news with Lisa and Theo over dinner. Theo nearly knocked over his glass of milk in excitement. "Do you think I'll get to hold one of those giant scissors for the ribbon cutting?" he asked. Lisa laughed. "I doubt it, sweetheart, but it's still going to be an amazing day." The ceremony was scheduled for the following Saturday. It would be covered by local and national press, highlighting Hamilton's investment in his hometown. The location chosen for the track was on the outskirts of Stevenage, previously an abandoned industrial site that would now be transformed into a state-of-the-art karting facility. When the day arrived, the Brennan family dressed in their best clothes. Theo wore the green wristband Hamilton had given him in Hungary, now slightly faded but still his most treasured possession. The site was crowded with local officials, journalists, and community members. A small stage had been set up with a podium and chairs for the speakers. Large renderings of the future facility were displayed on easels, showing a modern track with training facilities, classrooms, and a community center. When Hamilton arrived, he was immediately surrounded by photographers and fans seeking autographs. Despite the crowd, he made his way directly to where the Brennans were standing. Marcus, Lisa, Theo, he greeted them warmly, shaking hands with each of them. "Thank you for coming today." "We wouldn't have missed it," Marcus replied, still amazed at how comfortable he now felt in Hamilton's presence. The intimidating seven-time world champion had become almost a friend. "Theo, how's your racing going?" Hamilton asked, noticing the wristband on the boy's arm. "Better," Theo said enthusiastically. "I've been practicing in the rain like the coaches suggested." Hamilton nodded approvingly. "That's what makes the difference. Working on your weaknesses until they become strengths." As the ceremony began, Hamilton took the stage alongside local officials. He spoke passionately about his vision for the facility, not just as a racing track, but as a community hub where young people could learn skills that would serve them throughout life. Discipline, teamwork, perseverance. "This track represents more than just my journey in racing," Hamilton told the crowd. "It represents the potential in every young person, no matter where they come from." After the speeches and the ceremonial turning of the first soil with golden shovels, Hamilton pulled Marcus aside while Theo was examining the track renderings with Lisa. "There's something I haven't told you," he said, his voice low. "Your letter came at a time when I was struggling too, questioning whether to continue. In F1, wondering if I still had the fire. Reading about Theo's project, how he learned about my journey. It reminded me why I do this." Marcus was speechless. The idea that his letter had somehow helped Hamilton seemed impossible. "We all need reminders of our better selves sometimes," Hamilton continued. "You gave me that." As they rejoined the crowd, Marcus noticed a young boy watching Hamilton with awe, just as Theo once had. The boy's father stood beside him, looking uncomfortable in the fancy surroundings, much as Marcus had felt months ago at the Hungarian Grand Prix. With a small smile, Hamilton walked over to the boy and crouched down to his level, speaking with the same genuine interest he'd shown Theo. The boy's face lit up, while his father watched with a mixture of surprise and gratitude. Marcus recognized something familiar in that father's expression, the protective uncertainty of a parent watching their child meet a hero, the complex emotions of an adult confronting their own preconceptions. As the crowd began to disperse, Hamilton returned to the Brennans. "This is just the beginning," he told them. "When the track is completed next year, I want Theo to be one of the first to drive on it." "Really?" Theo's eyes widened. "Really?" Hamilton confirmed. "You're part of this story now. All of you are." As they walked to their car, Marcus felt a strange sense of completion. Standing beside Hamilton at the groundbreaking ceremony, he barely recognized himself from a year ago. The bitter man who had booed a champion out of jealousy and disappointment had been replaced by someone who could appreciate greatness, someone who had learned that admiration wasn't a finite resource to be carefully rationed. He had found something he never expected. Not just forgiveness, but understanding. 1 year after the infamous booing incident, the British Grand Prix at Silverstone arrived again. This time, the Brennan family approached the historic circuit with very different feelings. "It's strange to be back," Marcus said, as they walked from the parking area toward the entrance gates. "So much has changed since last year." "Good changes," Lisa reminded him, squeezing his hand. They had declined Hamilton's offer of special tickets, preferring to experience the race as regular fans. Marcus wanted to return to Silverstone on his own terms, to sit in the same grandstand where everything had started and close the circle properly. Theo walked between his parents, a study in diplomatic fan loyalty. He wore a Ferrari cap like his father's, but had paired it with a Hamilton shirt. The wristband from Hungary, now faded but carefully preserved, still circled his wrist. "Do you think we'll see Lewis before the race?" Theo asked as they found their seats. "Probably not up close," Marcus answered. "He'll be focused on his preparations." The grandstand filled around them. Some faces were familiar from the previous year, regular fans who attended every British Grand Prix. A few people gave Marcus curious glances. His face had appeared in enough news stories that he was occasionally recognized, but no one said anything uncomfortable. The atmosphere was electric, with fans chatting excitedly about the championship battle. Hamilton was trailing his main rival by just 6 points, making this home race crucial to his title hopes. During the driver's parade, when the pilots circled the track on the back of vintage convertibles, Hamilton spotted them in the crowd. Perhaps it was the bright red of their Ferrari caps that caught his eye, or perhaps he had been looking for them. He gave a small wave that few would notice, but meant everything to Marcus and his family. "He saw us!" Theo exclaimed, waving back enthusiastically. The race itself was thrilling. Hamilton qualified on pole position, but lost the lead at the start. For 50 laps, he chased the leader, looking for an opportunity to pass. The crowd roared with each attempt, the British fans desperate to see their hero win his home race. With 10 laps remaining, Hamilton made a daring move into the same corner where Marcus had booed him a year ago. The Mercedes swept around the outside of his rival in a brilliant display of skill and courage. The grandstand erupted in cheers, including Marcus's voice, sincerely cheering for a great racing move regardless of the team colors. "Did you see that, Dad?" Theo shouted over the noise. "Just like he told me, finding the grip on the outside where no one else looks for it." "I saw it," Marcus replied, caught up in the excitement. "That's why he's a champion." When Hamilton crossed the finish line to win his home Grand Prix, Theo jumped up and down with joy. Marcus applauded genuinely, proud to celebrate greatness in a way he hadn't been able to a year before. As the crowd began to disperse after the podium ceremony, a journalist approached Marcus. He recognized her from the local paper that had covered both the original booing story and the karting track groundbreaking. "Mr. Brennan? I thought that was you," she said, microphone in hand. "Would you mind answering a few questions for our follow-up piece? We're looking at how things have changed a year after that viral video." Marcus hesitated, looking at Lisa for guidance. She nodded encouragingly. "A quick interview is fine," he agreed. The journalist signaled to her cameraman, who positioned himself to capture both Marcus and the track in the background. "We're here with Marcus Brennan, who made headlines last year when a video showed him teaching his son to boo Lewis Hamilton at this very circuit," she began. "Mr. Brennan, now that a year has passed, and after your involvement with Hamilton's karting initiative, what would you say to Lewis Hamilton today?" Marcus looked at Theo, then back at the journalist. With cameras rolling, he faced the question he'd been dreading, but knew would eventually come. "I'd say thank you," he said simply. "Not just for being a great driver, but for showing my son, showing all of us, what true character looks like. When you have the chance to hold someone's mistake against them or help them grow from it, the choice you make says everything about who you are." The journalist nodded thoughtfully. And what would you say to other fans who boo drivers they don't support? Marcus paused, thinking carefully. I'd say remember that these drivers are people first. And remember that your children are watching how you act, learning from every cheer and every boo. The legacy we leave isn't just about who wins or loses. It's about how we treat each other along the way. As they walked to their car, Theo took his father's hand. "Dad," he said quietly, "do you think Mr. Hamilton would have forgiven me even if you hadn't written that letter?" Marcus looked down at his son, suddenly understanding the weight of the question. This wasn't just about Hamilton anymore. It was about what Theo had learned about forgiveness, about second chances, about the kind of person he wanted to be. "Yes," Marcus said firmly, "because that's who Lewis Hamilton is. And now, that's who we are too." What Marcus didn't tell his son, what no one knew except for Hamilton and himself, was the real reason the seven-time world champion had reached out after receiving his letter. It wasn't just about forgiveness or good publicity. During their private conversation at the YG groundbreaking ceremony, Hamilton had confided something that explained his surprising response. "Your letter came at exactly the right moment," Hamilton had told him. "I was considering retirement, questioning if I still belonged in this sport. Then I read about Theo learning my story through new eyes, and it reminded me why I race. Not just for trophies, but to show kids like him that barriers are meant to be broken." That was the secret Marcus would keep until Hamilton was ready to share it with the world. That a moment of booing had led to a letter of apology, which had helped renew a champion's passion for racing. A perfect circle, from conflict to understanding, from mistake to growth. As they drove away from Silverstone, Marcus glanced in the rearview mirror at his son, now dozing in the back seat, still wearing his mixed Ferrari and Hamilton gear. The boy was growing up with a lesson Marcus had learned too late, that admiring greatness in others takes nothing away from yourself. It was the most important podium Hamilton had helped them reach, not one of trophies or glory, but of becoming better people than they had been before. That's the end of our story. Where are you listening from today? We'd love to know in the comments below. If you enjoyed this tale of forgiveness, personal growth, and unexpected connections, please like this video and subscribe to our channel for more heartwarming stories like this one. Don't forget to share with your friends and family. Spreading stories of kindness and understanding is how we make the world a better place, one video at a time. Thank you for listening, and we'll see you in the next story.